What's up? Welcome to the Prolific Health and Fitness Podcast. I think that even if you are one of the lady folk, that you'll find this pretty interesting. But I think what we're going to talk about today is just what fitness means for men, to men, why it's important, kind of the mindset that men have, and if they don't have, should have when it comes to fitness. But we got to brainstorm real quick a cooler word than fitness, because I feel like that doesn't sound very. So instead, tell me what you think about this. Physical preparedness.
PP.
PP.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay.
MPP.
So we're going to talk about
physical preparedness.
Yeah, we're going to talk about our PP today.
And if you ain't down with that.
All right, so to get the ball rolling.
Yes.
We just had a lead message when we asked what their goals were, and they said something that I hope all men feel. And so he said, used to be a high school athlete. I want to get back in shape for myself and for my wife. And obviously there are tons of dudes that are already in shape for themselves and their wives and their families. So they may not be thinking, man, I need to do better. Although I think that it would serve you well to always be thinking, I need to do better. But this guy realized he was not in, and like, that's all I know about this guy so far.
Yeah.
I've not dug deeper into that. I don't even know what he means specifically by that. But as a man, there are certain realities that you have to accept. And I think that, and I say this conversation is coming purely from a place of kindness. Because if we didn't care, we wouldn't bother talking about it.
Right.
There are a lot of dudes out there that are not ready to do what they need to be able to do for their families. This guy realized that. And what I think is so cool about that is because I'm almost certain that every guy would think the same thing. Few of them would be man enough to say it out loud, because it's kind of embarrassing to say out loud that you're not in a place to defend or provide for or do whatever, set a good example, whatever that happens to be.
Yeah.
And that can take like a million different forms. You can be a big dude, but if you're active, you set a good example, you're physically capable, who cares? You don't got to look jacked or anything. You don't have to be Andy Elliott in short shorts talking about how if you're not shredded to the bone, then you're not good enough, which I think is just absolutely ridiculous. But this dude not only acknowledged that, this man not only acknowledged that, but was willing to tell that to a complete stranger, or unbeknownst to him, several complete strangers, and now have it shared on a podcast. Obviously, we won't say his name, but I think that that's really cool, and I think that that's something that we can talk quite a bit about as far as the importance, what that should look like, what that means. So, as a father and as a man to many a women throughout your life, what does physical preparedness, what has physical preparedness, what does that mean?
So, not to many women, just a chosen few.
A respectful amount.
Yes. So I guess what that would mean to me is, at one point in time, on my small, luscious 5'7" frame, I was 240 pounds. And it wasn't all good weight. And when I look back at pictures of that, I realize that mentally I thought I could defend my family. But if that time came, it wouldn't be very long before I'd fall first. Being prepared to be able to go to battle for my family really goes back to like a little bit of my upbringing. It goes back to my time in the Marine Corps, where there's standards. And I think we've gotten away from that as technology has kind of evolved, as work has taken priority over everything. We've really devolved ourselves from being or from putting an importance on being able to defend our family. Whenever at one point in time, that was really natural selection. Hey, the person who can defend the most, or the person that can provide the most, you know, that's what's looked up to. And so because we've moved so far away from that, like for me, man, I couldn't live with myself if my daughter thought I couldn't defend her, or if my son had to look at that 240-pound man on his 5'7" frame. If he had to look at that every day, he would never listen to me. My son's a smart ass anyway, but like I would want to be able to back up what I'm saying to him so that he has the example. Because I mean, my son will be 13 this year. I say it every time, all the time. 5 years, I'll have an 18-year-old. It's wild to me that that's the reality. But the truth is, I want to be able to set that example for him, not just physically, but like I feel like once I get to a point to where I'm really happy, I'm going to keep working towards it. But I'm also going to show him how to do it as well. In terms of like showing the women in my life that I am physically prepared to defend them, or to just be that kind of beacon for them to be like, okay, like that's a man. For me, it all starts with being able to push my limits, or being able to do things that maybe other men wouldn't, put themselves through. Like our training in here is pretty rigorous at times. We pull it back every now and then, but like I want to be prepared if I have to go into a situation where it's not every day I see this situation. I want to be able to be prepared to know like, all right, like I train myself harder than this situation is going to be on me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that there's some importance that we need to talk about with that, because I mean, if we look at the numbers, and I don't even know that this stat has been truly taken. I mean, we could take obesity stats and all that stuff, but like if we look at a stat that's truly taken, we take the lowest form of physical preparedness for, let's just say, the military, the initial strength test. I would almost say that's the lowest form, because everything they do is cut in half of what they prepare you to do. I would be willing to say that the general population, we would probably have a single percentage. And I'm not just saying 1%. I'm saying like it would be single digit percentage as to how many people could pass that right now. And it's very simple stuff. It's the initial strength test for the Marine Corps. Whenever I was just getting in was, I think it was 3 pull-ups. It was, I want to say it was maybe like a 15-minute mile and a half. And then it was, I think it was like maybe 35 to 40 crunches in a minute. Actually, in 2 minutes. So when you think about that, if you are someone who is in shape, or you're someone that takes care of yourself, that doesn't seem like much. That might seem like a day at the office to you. Like that might feel like your warm up. However, when you look at the amount of people that are kind of going through this, like work comes first, like we see some pretty heavy people walking down the street. And oftentimes for me, I'm like, man, like I know there's a story behind like how they got there. We see a lot of heavy men walking down the street, and we're like, man, like they got a beautiful family. Like what would happen in a situation where he would need to step up and be the protector? Because for me, I'm like, yeah, man, I'm a short little 190-pound dude now, but like I know the way that I train myself, the way that like you structure my diet now, like I know that in a situation my family can depend on me, point blank. And I think they know they can depend on me, because this has become a huge part of my life. Yeah, I'm a trainer, but like even outside of that, like this has always been a huge part of my life. And so for the men that may look at this as like, man, I want to go train after work, or I don't want to wake up early to go train. If shit hit the fan tomorrow and your family needs you to train for those situations, are you going to do it? Because this guy hit us up, and honestly, that was probably the realest thing somebody could have dropped on us. Because typically it's, I want to build
Immediately.
muscle.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to tone up. I got this wedding I'm preparing for. It's typically something like that where it's like, it's not just like it's about what they want. And that's important. Don't get me wrong, because if you don't have a tangible goal when you first walk in, you're probably not gonna stick around. But this was deeper than just him. There was something that was bothering him, and it's probably something that's been bothering him for years. And he's looking at this as like, my wife has stood by me. I don't know how long they've been married, but apparently his wife has stood by him while he's gained this weight or maybe lost some muscle or whatever the case may be. And he's like, I want to be a better man for myself and for her. That, to me, is the realest, legitimately like the realest lead that we've gotten.
I can't do. As soon as I read that, I mean, I immediately called him, and it went to voicemail. But I was like, "Sir, I just want you to know that was real.
Yeah.
That's an incredible observation to make about yourself. I cannot wait to talk to you. So call me back at this number."
Yeah.
And dude, he may even see this podcast before he signs up, and
Yeah.
then he's going to be like, "Huh, they're talking about me now."
Yeah.
And I think it's important before we dive too much deeper to say, we're not talking like some stupid manosphere red pill stuff where you got to be like, you're not a man if you're not ready to kill every other man on earth or some stupid shit like that.
That's dumb.
That's not what we're talking about. It's not anything stupid like that. It is, are you doing the best that you can?
Yeah.
And that looks different for everybody. Everybody's in a different situation. You and I are trainers. We're already at the gym when we finish work.
Yeah.
We don't have to go anywhere. We don't have added travel time. We don't have added gym expenses. It's a little bit easier for us.
Yeah.
And we're also privileged in that no, I'm not going to use the word privilege because I hate that word, although it is accurate for what I'm trying to say.
Privileged.
We are passionate about learning sports and nutrition science, so we're very well aware of what it is we need to do to get where it is we want to go.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't have that direction, but that's what we're here for. It's just about, are you doing the best that you can with the tools, the time, the situation that you have available? If that means $1 a month Planet Fitness membership and you don't actually have any idea what you're doing, but you're getting in there and you're doing something, awesome, man.
Yeah.
But if you know that you don't have any idea what you're doing, the moment you have the resources to either go to somebody or the time to sit down and learn, you kind of should be doing that.
Yeah.
Because that is incredibly important. You may wake up thinking, I don't want to train today. And sometimes that's viable. Like if you wake up and you know there's no way I can perform today, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, you shouldn't train every day anyways. That's one thing. But if it's purely a lack of motivation issue, think to yourself, okay, I don't want to train today. Do I want to admit defeat in a life or death scenario where my family's well-being is on the line? No. All right, I should probably train today then.
Yeah.
And like, this may sound dramatic and exaggerated, and it's incredibly unlikely, of course, that you're going to end up in a situation like that. But it sounds kind of awful. Like, would you be willing to look at your family and say, I'm willing to take the chance that something bad's not going to happen to us, although I know that if something bad did happen, I couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
This is one of the, like, this disgusted me to my core. I think I've always been, no, not always. Most of my conscious life, I think I've been decently humble. I've definitely had some ego. I've been a young teenager. I still have ego problems. Everybody has ego problems in different facets of their life.
Yeah.
But I remember I had a girlfriend in high school who told me once, and this just broke my heart for her and disgusted me. She told me her dad pulled her aside one day, and this was after I'd gotten into the gym pretty hard, so like I looked muscular. He pulled his daughter aside and told her, you need to be careful because if he tries to do anything to you, I can't stop him.
Yeah.
That just made me feel so gross. Not like, and the dude had met me one time. Yeah. I didn't take it as an insult that he was judging me that way. And that did not make me feel good. Like, that did not make me feel any sense of, yeah, I'm big, cool, and badass. I was like, how awful is it that this dude just took away his daughter's entire sense of safety? around her father.
Yeah.
And how, as a man, can you admit that out loud? Like, of course, there's physical disabilities, there's injuries, there's if you're doing the best that you can, but somebody just happens to walk into your house that has the ability to do better, that's one thing. This dude didn't do anything.
Yeah.
This was just like a very sedentary guy. And that was one of the saddest and most disturbing things that I've ever heard and witnessed in my own life. Just the willingness to admit that. Like, if that's a wake-up call to you, if that dude walks into your house and you're thinking to yourself, I couldn't stop this 17-year-old from doing something this 17-year-old shouldn't do.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. We've all got areas in our life where we're not doing good, and we need to pick up the slack. Take that as a wake-up call.
Yeah.
But don't just say, well, this is a situation we're in. Like, start doing something, man. And that's, like, when I come into the gym, I train pretty hard. I'm very purposeful about my training. And I have, like, subjective goals that I'd like to accomplish. Like, I'll set, I want to squat this much for this many reps, or I want to deadlift or bench this much, or I want to, do whatever. I have my performance metrics, but my thought process when I walk into the gym is I want to be as close to a superhero as possible, so that for myself and those around me, I have as much confidence and readiness to back that up for whatever potential situation may demand that of me. And the reason that, like, this podcast topic's kind of been floating around in my head for a little bit is we had Dolan on your guys' last podcast talking about setting an example as a father. And I commented on that because it had never been like a conscious thought in my head.
Yeah.
But I've always looked at my dad like a superhero for physical reasons. Like, I look at both of my parents as superheroes for the fact that it never crossed my mind that I couldn't rely on them when I was a kid, or that there was something I couldn't go to them for. So they're both superheroes to me in that aspect. But to my dad, because he never looked super jacked or shredded or anything like that, but he was in SWAT, he did jiu-jitsu, like he had applications in his life that made him dangerous. But to me as a kid, it wasn't he's dangerous, it's, wow, my dad's a superhero because he can take down bad guys if he needs to. And then, so I commented and I was like, I think that's amazing. Because Dolan, that's his whole thing. Like, that's his motivation, is he's a father. So it's setting an example for discipline. It's being, ready to defend, to provide, whatever that is. But then I got really sad because I know that there are some kids out there that aren't going to get to have that. And whether they realize what they're missing out on or not, dude, if you're a dad, I can't wait to be a dad. I'd like to have a son, but if it's a son or a daughter, whatever it is, I can't wait to have someone look at me the way that I know I looked at my dad.
Yeah.
And the way I still look at my dad. Even though I know, Dad, if you're watching this, we can pretend I didn't say this. I know my dad, and I understand why, but I know my dad will never admit, yeah, son, you've probably hit the point where you can take me down. And that's totally fine. I get that. And him and I don't even need to have that conversation. But even though in my head I know that I have surpassed his ability to, combat me effectively, probably, he's still, to me, in my head, like, there's this layer of invincibility that I view him through.
Yeah.
I know he's not, by any means. Like, he lives, he works out, he's strong, he's a capable guy, but he's not actually a superhero. He's not actually invincible. But because that's how I felt like, or that's how I saw him growing up, that's still what it feels like.
Yeah.
There was I never felt like I was in danger as a kid. Not for a moment. That thought never even crossed my mind because my dad went out of his way to make a conscious effort to ensure that he had the skills or the equipment available to the best of his ability to defend and provide. Now, my dad was fortunate in a couple ways because being in law enforcement, you have a little bit more access to, like, firearms training and combat training and stuff like that. And later on in life, he had the free time to be able to take up hobbies like jujitsu and boxing and stuff like that he brought me along for. And again, you may not have that available to you, and that is totally fine.
Yeah.
But if you aren't taking advantage of what you do have available to you, we all have areas in life that we need to do better in. But that is a really freaking easy one. Like, it takes hard work.
Yeah.
But if your issue in life is that you don't know how to externalize your compassion because you didn't grow up in a loving environment or something like that, that is way more complex to work through and figure out how to improve upon for your family than going to the gym and picking up heavy things and then putting them down and then continuing to do that until you can't anymore.
Yeah.
That's way more simple, clear cut and dry. And this dude, like, we're sitting here talking probably already for 30 minutes to unpack what this guy meant to say in just a few words. I want to get in better shape for myself and my wife. He almost certainly means all of this stuff that we've already talked about and are going to continue to talk about. But that's how much meaning there is in that.
Yeah.
And he recognized that. I think every man knows that. And even if you are of the opinion, and we'll avoid debating this opinion, but even if you're of the opinion that the great equalizer makes it so that you don't have to be in good physical condition, I think you and I probably both agree on whether or not that's right or wrong, but
Right.
let's say you take that stance. Okay, cool. I'm glad that you've got some equipment available to take care of that job. Are you setting an example in your life for your family of discipline and taking care of yourself? Because if you aren't looking at it from a physical readiness perspective, you cannot make the argument that you are even as close to as healthy as you could be if you're not exercising regularly
Yeah.
and eating at least decently good. So you are going to live a shorter life with your family, and you're going to live a less quality life with your family. I've talked about this a couple times before, but they have compared the lifespans and the comorbidities. So how long do people live and how high quality is their life as far as diagnosable medical injuries or chronic conditions. They've compared self-admitted steroid-using athletes to their own family members. So by using their own family members, you rule out almost all genetic factors. Well, we know that steroids are pretty bad for you most of the time in most scenarios, even if you're being very careful about how you're using them.
Yeah.
They live significantly longer and have significantly lower comorbidities than their siblings, not even than their parents, than their siblings. They have access to all the same levels of healthcare, all of the same foods, modern knowledge about fitness, lifespan, health, whatever you want to talk about. They did steroids, which should shorten their lifespan. But you can make a pretty educated extrapolation and you can say, well, these are pro athletes. They cared about their sport and performance enough to take steroids. I bet you they cared a lot about their training, nutrition, and sleep. Those three things were so powerful that not only did they override what should have been the side effects of steroids, not override, the side effects still came, but not only did they make up for in measurable outcomes the use of steroids, which I'm not condoning. This is not a, hey, take steroids statement. But they also had better years, more years and better years.
Yeah.
Now, would they have had more if they would not have abused steroids when they were in sports? Probably. But they still had longer and better lives than their siblings because they cared about their health and fitness. And as a man, if your job is to lead your household, or at least contribute to the leadership of your household, you got to have some good years.
Yeah.
And the more of them you have, the more you can do that. The more you can enjoy your own life, and the more you can set up your family to enjoy their lives as well. And that's a lot. But that's probably, I don't know, 30% of what fitness as a man means to me. But what are some more thoughts you have?
Well, the way you see your dad, I think there's a lot of importance on that, especially me being a dad. I think because I think there's a level of respect there too, because might have looked at it this way. Your dad worked long hours, provided for you guys, but still took it upon himself to be as ready as possible for if situations come up, because situations do come up.
Yeah, within his means. Yeah.
Yeah, and so because of that, that bred the Logan we see in front of us, because it obviously became really important to you, and it's one of those things that I'm sure you value. And there's a lot of people out there that really value it. I think because of that, though, if you look at how many people would rather be in the gym nowadays versus back when I started training, like from a perspective of like the generations, these younger kids are really getting in here and getting after it. And a lot of that comes from seeing unhealthy parents. Like when I was growing up, it was always kind of, when we eat these foods, we've had a podcast where we talked about that, but I never saw my parents do physical stuff. Like I never saw them ever like, all right, we're going to go for a walk. We're going to go to the gym. We're going to go do martial arts. We're going to do bike rides. It's never ever any of those things that I saw them put their body through. And even from like an overall family perspective, I never really saw those things either. But it became really important to me because I was like, well, initially it was just like, man, I'm good at sports. So, this is what I'm going to do. I didn't fall in love with the portion where it was like, hey, I'm doing this thing that's going to make me still look like I'm young. Like, I'd argue now I have a better physique than I did back when I was 18. I'd argue now that I understand a lot more why I'm doing what I'm doing rather than just going in and tossing up big weight. I would even argue more that because of my exposure to training over the years and seeing all the differences, seeing all the people that have kind of come and go within the industry itself, I would argue that because I'm a dad, it pushed me even further and further down this wormhole of gathering information and training myself and trying to see like how far can I push my athleticism deeper into the, as I continue to get older and as my kids continue to get older. When they were little, I used to, it sounds really bad, but it was kind of something I used to chuckle about because so their mom and I would take them to like the swings and the slides and stuff like that. Let's say there's 10 people there. Let's say there's 10 parents that are all on the bench. What's the percentage of the parents that you think were up there actually like trying to run around and play with their kids?
Way too small.
It was way too small. It was me and like one mom. They were up. Everybody else on the bench.
It's only gotten worse.
And it has gotten worse.
Dude, you go out and the amount of kids that are just on iPads because their parents don't have, whether they recognize it or not, the energy to just play around and interact with their kids.
Yeah.
And maybe sometimes I'm being too judgmental because who knows how much playing they're doing at home. Maybe they do a ton of playing at home. And
I don't know, man.
They're at an event, they need their kid to not interfere with that, whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. I see so many times parents, instead of hiring a nanny, they buy an iPad, and that iPad raises their kids, and they don't actually play with them. Dude, at like ages of infancy, less than a year old, I have seen, we are, by 2030, if current rates of childhood obesity continue where they are at, more than half of all children on the planet will be obese.
It's wild.
We've all got to set a better example, man.
Yeah.
We've all got to set a better example. And like I said, like if you're at a spot in life where what is best for your family is to skip the gym, work more on your business or your job to make money so that you can get into a situation where you have the time to do that, okay, I get it, man. First of all, there's a buttload of stuff that you can do at home.
Yeah.
With the exception of the East and West Coast, it is not more expensive to eat healthy than it is to eat crap.
Yeah.
You just don't know how to grocery shop. There's a million bodyweight exercises that you can do. If you're injured, okay, I get that. there's almost certainly still at least something that you can do. And that if temporarily, you got to give every hour of free time that you have into making money, because that's the most important thing you need to do to support your family at that moment. Okay, man, but be realistic with yourself. Order your list of priorities and understand that once that box is checked, the next one under that is probably the physical aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. And because that is one of those things that should be more important as well. Obviously, like you said, like work, life happens. Like we get life happens. But if you come from a family that has a high mortality rate of like, from diabetes or something like that, where it's like, you just come from a family that just has bigger people. One of the things that should be important to you is almost like, if you have kids, put yourself in your kids' position for a minute. When we're kids, we're all scared of these imaginary monsters like the boogeyman and all this stuff. Like, honestly, like, if you think about it, I know when I was younger, I never like thought about like, oh man, like the way we eat, that's what's gonna take my parents out. But couldn't we make that a bigger priority so that our kids don't necessarily have to worry about that? Couldn't we make it a bigger priority to at least look the part, like we are the defenders? Like we can actually, like, providing is a huge thing and it's super important, but also like provide that sense of security to your family. Because at the end of the day, like, that sense of security is what's going to help your kids grow up better. Like, I know from a perspective of like, I didn't have a broken home, but I definitely, like, there were definitely times where I was like, I don't know, and my dad's a little old. Like, I don't know that he could take care of me. But I don't feel like even in split households, like if they feel like the dad can handle stuff, I feel like, especially because I've had these conversations with my kids before, my kids are like, Dad, we have no doubt. Especially in the past few years, like, Dad, like we know. And so, and then that makes me feel really good because I don't just lift for myself. I don't just do judo for myself. Like, I'm trying to put myself in situations that could really happen, but I'm also just trying to be as prepared as possible. And by doing that, I'm trying to set the example because my kids are iPad kids. It's true. However, they do things outside of that where they don't want to necessarily be on their phones or their iPads all the time. And they see it in the other kids that are around. It's like, yeah, man, such and such is always doing this. I'm like, well, you can't really worry about them. You got to do the things that you can do.
Yeah.
Sports are great. As much teaching your kids like what foods are like halfway decent for you, like introducing them to new cultures and how other cultures view nutrition or view physical activity. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, when I was little, I saw things one way. It's because that's what I was raised around. I saw things one way, and I'd ask a question, I was told to shut up. And then I grew up, I moved away from all that, and then I started to kind of like see how, kind of learn what a man was when I moved away and got into the Marine Corps. I learned real quick. I learned how to like make decisions confidently, even if they were dumb ones. Like, these are the things that I think having routine and having structure, because physical preparedness, what umbrella does that go under? That goes under structure. If you have a structure and you say, even if you hate it, I need to go to the gym, or I need to go to whatever martial art I might be doing, or I need to go to boxing, whatever. You have a structure in place. So that way, we all have high stress situations, especially if you live in the States. It's a dog eat dog world. If you're not able to freaking defend yourself, or if you're not able to be quick on your feet, if you're not able to do these things that we need to do in order to survive, then you're not going to survive. And then you crash, your family's crashing out right after you. So there's definitely an importance on the physical preparedness because it bleeds into so many other factors of your life. How many business owners do we have that come in here that are just like, dude, I feel great. Like I'm thinking more for my business. Like things are starting to really improve. Like then people go on vacations and they can actually enjoy their vacations a little bit better. Their families are starting to notice the change. Like the kids are starting to look at them in a different light. Like maybe even the light that you look at your dad in. That's important because it doesn't. If you look at your dad, if you looked at your dad as a hero when you were like 10 years old, all the way up to now, don't you feel like that helped structure your life a little bit better than it would have if you didn't?
Yeah, of course, man. Because I want to, want to live up to that. No, I want to surpass that
Yeah,
as my example.
and that's the importance. So I think just to kind of speak to the men right now, it's like it's one of those things where like when I was younger and I got married, I felt like I was thrusted into leadership that I didn't necessarily know how to handle. But as I've grown, I've realized really quickly, all right, like these are the things that I need to handle. But the one thing I always stayed on top of was my physical preparedness. And that was from the Marine Corps. Got a little lazy over the years. And then I was like, no, I have to fix this. Especially as I started to see my kids sprouting up. It's like one of those things that I definitely feel like every man should have on the top of their list. Point blank.
Yeah. Also, if your wife tells you that she'll always think you're sexy, even if you aren't super jacked and strong looking, she's just being nice. Women are super compassionate like that. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong.
Yeah. This is super vain, but I'll never forget leaving Deadpool and Wolverine, the movie, and that scene at the end where like his shirt disintegrates and
Yeah.
he's like super jacked and ripped and stuff. And in the car ride home, my girlfriend looked at me and she was like, she reached over and she grabbed my hand. She was like, I'm so glad I have a man like that. And I was like externally, I'm like, yeah, no problem, babe. But in my head, I'm like,
Well, you know,
you know, um, but also like for real though, and this is not just for men, but I knew this trainer back where I used to live named Destiny, and she worked exclusively with women, and it was almost always wives. And I would hear all the time because they would say this super brazenly just in the middle of the gym. They would be like, "Yeah, I've been working with you for like 3 months, and my husband wants to be intimate with me so much more now. Like he's all over me, and I love it." And they don't even care to just share that with the world because that means so much to them.
yeah,
That goes both ways.
it
Like
definitely
you want
goes.
to be able to be attracted to your partner. And obviously there's more to it than just the way that you look. And there's a bunch of ways that you can look that your partner's going to find attractive.
Right.
But like, come on now.
Yeah, and it just
then-
makes you feel good internally too. Because I bet you that comment felt great.
I'm telling you, man, I was like, that's right.
Hey man, look, in my older years, I never thought I'd hear it, but it's like, you know, my girlfriend's like, man, I really enjoy the washboards. I've never been told I got washboard abs, man. That ego, y'all think I got a big ego, man? That went.
Oh, they blow smoke all
It
the time.
does.
We were watching Reacher, Alan Richton, like 6'7", 300 pounds muscle,
Yeah.
and she was like, "That's what you look like," and I was like, "I literally weigh less than half of him, but okay." Like I'll
He's
take
like two
it.
of me stacked on top of each other.
I'll take it. Somebody's gonna have to say something mean to me tomorrow to kind of balance that out, so my head doesn't get too big. But all right. But
It's
no,
a beautiful thing to hear, though.
that matters. Yeah, it makes you feel good.
It does. And even like we've talked about it in the past where where we have explained the importance of like you want to look good, you want to feel good, all those other things, but like when we make commitments to each other, we make commitments to people. I think that there's some importance on like yes, we all get older. Like sometimes like the body starts to make changes and stuff like that, but like a lot of times when we stop working on it, those changes start to get pushed further and further down the road quicker than they should be. And so whenever we stop like actually taking advantage of the fact that we have right now is probably the greatest time that we've ever lived for information. You have so much information.
It should be.
Should be. I know there's a lot of wrong stuff out
Yeah.
there, but even with the wrong stuff, people getting up and moving, I think that's important and
It should be.
crushing it. Like people should be crushing it right now. Like there's no excuse.
Do you know that there are more people who are malnutritioned because they are obese than because they are underfed?
I didn't know that actually.
There are more people who are suffering chronic disease as a result of too much food than as a result of too little in the world right now.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild. But
Before we get on our soapbox.
we say this though because we're not trying to judge people. Everybody starts somewhere. Everybody lets things slip. It's so easy to convince yourself that something that you can control is actually out of your control. And because we love you, that's why we're going to talk about it. We're not going to let you convince yourself that something is out of your control if it is within your control. And we're going to tell you what you can do about it. And we're going to remind you why it's important. Because it is. Like, whether you like it or not, life is going to life. And I hope that you never have to rise to that level of preparedness and defend your family or whatever that is, because that's not good for anybody. But to some of us, it's going to happen. And I would much rather you be prepared for that than not. I would also much rather your wife brag to her friends that she's got the sexiest man out of the book club. And makes you feel good when you can do stuff around the house too. I was trying to get the four-wheeler out the other day, and I opened the barn door too far, and it slid off the rails, and that thing weighs like 100 pounds. And I just got the ladder out, and it was kind of funky. It took me a minute to figure out how to fix it, but I just fucking picked it up and put it back on there. It's like no big deal. You want to be able to do stuff like that in life, but that takes some level of maintenance, at least, of your performance. Like, we want you to be as capable as possible in life so that you can feel good about it, so that you can make your family feel good about it. That's why. And we understand that there are things in life that may be preventing you from rising to fulfill your potential, but there are almost certainly things that you can be doing to at least start working towards that. And if you have to focus on other things right now, I get it, but at some point in time, you're going to have the time and the resources. So don't ignore those and be the best man that you can be, not just for yourself, but for everybody else.
Absolutely. And to kind of close this out, if I may, I definitely think that there is, kind of like Logan said, and there's a level of importance there. Like, if you don't see yourself, look, I've been there where my pants didn't fit anymore, or my shirts just hung over my belly a bit too much. If you don't see that change can be made, and you don't believe that change can be made, it's not going to. And it's a lot easier to fix it right now than it would be for you to fix it later, because you're not getting any younger. And you just want, I don't know, I want to feel like I'm back in my glory days of high school, being able to, run, jump, and, for lack of a better word, fetch and catch a ball. You know what I mean? Like, I want to feel those. I want to feel like I'm playing varsity every day. And if I don't feel as if I am capable of doing that, there's going to be a level of my self-esteem dropping. Like, mentally, I'm just not as prepared as I possibly could be. And then physically, I got to carry this body around every day, and I'm looking at it and I'm just like, man, I don't know what to do. It's never going to improve. So take some of the gems that we've dropped in here today, and if you don't contact us, fine, but at least start to kind of devise a plan for yourself, because I think it's important. If we ever want to build a stronger community, this is the way we're going to do it. We need to build ourselves up, so that way you can reach back and help somebody else. It all starts by someone seeing a piece of that inspiration. Like, man, I remember such and such, he used to struggle walking up the stairs, and now he's running 5Ks, or he's running half marathons, or he's just able to pick up, he's just able to go up and do things around the house. Like, there's so many things that could be of inspiration to other people, that we need to stop looking at what we can't do and start going towards what we want to do. That's all I got for you guys. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.